Well, good morning, everyone. This is Laura Siscomani with the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Welcome to today's webinar, which is a part of our distinguished virtual leadership series that features leaders in both business and government covering a broad range of topics. I want to say thank you to all of us who are joining us to hear from Maricopa County Attorney Allister Adel. Allister, thank you for joining us today to share the latest updates from your office with our members. Our presenting sponsor today is Louis Roca Rothgerber Christie. Thank you so much for your support. You're a longstanding board level member of our chamber and we truly appreciate you. Thank you. Also, many thanks to our webinar sponsor, Hensley Beverage Company, another longstanding member who has been tremendously supportive. Before I formally introduce Allister Adel, we have some housekeeping items to cover. The format of this webinar is conversational. I will field questions to Allister throughout the webinar, but I encourage you to submit your questions via the chat if something occurs to you while we're talking. And if you're active on Twitter or Facebook and would like to share nuggets from our conversation, please feel free to do so. Tag us at AZChamber on Twitter and use our hashtags, hashtag AZChamberLive and hashtag 2020 Leadership Series. Also, we will have a questions and answers session as we wrap up this webinar today. So please feel free to raise your hand at the end during that segment and we'll do our best to call on you. Now, it is my honor to introduce Maricopa County Attorney Allister Adel. Allister Adel was appointed as Maricopa County Attorney on October 3rd, 2019. In fact, it was during our manufacturing summit, I remember vividly. And we were all so excited because she's the first woman to serve as county attorney for Maricopa County, which is a huge feat. She began her legal career in Maricopa County's attorney's office, where she was an award-winning litigator prosecuting felonies and advocating for victims' rights. During her more than 7 years as deputy county attorney, she served in the vehicular crimes, gang, and drug enforcement bureaus. She was then appointed to executive leadership positions in Arizona state government from 2011 to 2015, including Chief Administrative Law Judge for the Arizona Department of Transportation and General Counsel for the Arizona Department of Child Safety. She received her law degree from Arizona State University Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law, which we are not going to hold against her because she's also a Wildcat. She received her Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science from the University of Arizona, bear down. And with that very high note, welcome, Allister.
Well, thank you, Laura, and thank you, Laura and Glenn and the Chamber for having me today. I'm so grateful just to be here with you. Yes, my undergrad at Wildcat at heart. I met my husband there. I look better in blue and red, but I have ASU to thank for my law degree. So we are a house divided.
And we won't hold that against you, of course. Before I start firing away questions, is there anything else you'd like to share with our members so that they can get to know you a little bit better?
Oh, sure. Right now, since we're shelter in place a little bit, I've been going to the office 2 to 3 days a week in the mornings and then working from home in the afternoons. I'm actually at home right now, so if you hear a dog, I'm really sorry. But I have my little Zoom station set up in my house right now. What I can tell you a little bit about me, I met my now husband at U of A. We've been together for 23 years, married for 18. We have 2 little boys. They are 8 and 9, and they have the same birthday the week of Christmas. So it's a little crazy in our house on December 21st, but it's wonderful. So we live in Central Phoenix. I'm proud to be part of this community. And I'm just grateful to be here today. So thank you for asking that question about what else I can tell you about me personally. I could go on and on. I'm a lawyer. I like to hear myself talk. So I could go on and on, but we'll leave it at that. Let's get to the important substantive stuff.
Okay, sounds good. Last week, and I'm sure this is on a lot of people's minds, you made a big announcement about new prosecution policies and a treatment first approach to drug possession cases. Can you please elaborate on these new policies and how they will impact criminal cases?
Well, and I thank you for the question. You know, when I took office in October 3rd, like you said, my life is pre-October 3rd and post-October 3rd. We're really looking at treating the offender and not the offense. And by that, I mean, people are committing crimes, whether it's organized retail theft, whether it's drug possession, because they have underlying issues of either a drug addiction or mental health. And so we want to make sure that we are treating those, because in my mind, this is an economic issue for me. This is incumbent upon all prosecutors nationwide to be a part of a greater conversation. And it's not just legislative. We have to look at recidivism reduction so that people aren't reoffending and breaking into your house or my car. And so how we're doing that at the county attorney's office in Maricopa, what we're doing is we now have a very robust diversion program that is based in evidence-based curriculum so that people are getting the treatment that they need, getting connected to the services that they need so that they can be back and working with little disruption to family, school, and all the rest of it. So again, those that want to do better and be better, that is only good for our economy. And that's why we rolled out those new policies.
Can you give an example about treatment first? Just an example, maybe, so that we can illustrate what it would look like in practical terms for a drug possession case.
Absolutely. So it used to be that the county attorney's office would charge a fine just to participate in a diversion program, a minimum of $630. And that population who is offending, they don't have those resources. So I eliminated that financial barrier. And that was a huge step because now we can, again, get people back and working. But what it looks like for a typical drug possessor, they will go into a program, and Sage Counseling is our provider now. And they have one of 6 tracks, but they will get evaluated at the beginning for their risk to reoffend, their risk to relapse, their criminogenic needs, meaning are they antisocial? Things like that. And so that we can put them in a track that is ultimately going to help them rather than incarcerate them and institutionalize them where they're going to reoffend. So now it's actually saving us taxpayer dollars because traditional prosecution takes 18 months to 2 years. So that is your employee, my prosecutors, the defense bar, the court taking time out of their schedules to have hearings. Whereas diversion, where if you want to do better and be better and you're committed to that, takes about 4 to 6 months. Mm-hmm. And it costs us less, and it's less wear and tear on our justice system, but the recidivism rate is dramatically reduced. And so when somebody is eligible with a drug possession charge, we will offer them diversion, but they have to want to do it. They have to agree to do it. So again, we are there to make people do better and be better. And the county attorney's office, our role in this system is not just reactive. It's also proactive. And I'm really proud to say that this robust diversion program is a step in the right direction.
That's wonderful. And someone just popped up in the chat, the nexus between criminal justice and our local economy, and I think you touched upon that, right? Whereas recidivism and looking at your diversion programs, how much money is saved, and also allowing that person to get back to, integrating themselves into their community and also their participation in the local economy. So really important. Right now, there is a national dialogue around racial equality, justice, because of the unspeakable injustice committed against George Floyd. How do you think these new policies, such as the treatment first approach to drug possession cases, how do you think that increases access to justice?
Well, that's a great question. And George Floyd, he was murdered. I mean, let's call it what it is. He was murdered. And our jurisdiction, we have got to be more accountable and look at what we're doing, because it is so important, because the dialogue has changed. And it's not just about racial inequality, which is important. And we have to have those discussions. And what I tell people when I've gone on a listening tour is that we might not always agree, but it starts with having a conversation. And that's what's most important. And when we talk about access to justice, right now we're in a pandemic. And that's challenging for all of us, personally, professionally, everyone on this call, and I see some amazing people on here, we're all struggling with it. Access to justice right now is a little bit tough because we are at the mercy of the courts, and they are not fully open yet. And so we need to do our best to seek justice, not only for victims, but to protect defendants' due process as well. But the national conversation that's going on, Laura, like you asked about, it needs to happen. We can't ignore the elephant in the room. And again, we might not always agree, but this is about having a conversation about how can we do better and be better.
Absolutely. The Diversion Program Bureau that was formed in 2018 has experienced a notable increase in program enrollment. And to acknowledge that growth, your office, they renamed the Bureau to the Diversion Strategies Group. This group, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but it administers 10 diversion programs, and it's developing new programs. So can you please share with our audience some notable data points about the results that you're seeing, especially as it relates to recidivism?
Absolutely. And it's a little tough with data points right now, just because, again, we're in a pandemic. We didn't just rename the program. We shifted gears. For 30 years, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office was engaged with a provider called Task, and they were wonderful, but it wasn't evidence-based practices, and people weren't getting necessarily the treatment they needed. So we merged our drug diversion program with our felony pretrial intervention program to make it more robust so that we could target more people. And so now we've had 2,700 people since May that have been offered that program. But with social distancing and the pandemic, things have slowed down a bit. I'm very optimistic and hopeful that once we enter phase 2 per the governor's orders, we can expand that program exponentially. I have talked with our lawyers, our prosecutors, that we need to be utilizing diversion, because you're right, it is different, Laura. Like it has changed. It doesn't just have a new name. It actually is more robust because, again, evidence-based practices where we can monitor with data the recidivism rate. And that's what's key, because we will never have meaningful criminal justice reform or meaningful recidivism reduction programs if we don't have data. And we are monitoring that now. And I'm so proud of our Diversion Strategies group for being able to do that now.
Well, and you mentioned the limitations right now due to the pandemic, especially with the courts not fully reopening. Are there other limitations that your office is facing due to COVID-19?
Well, yes, all of us are. We had to pivot pretty rapidly. We are considered essential employees, and rightfully so. The justice system has to go on. We needed to get laptops out to our folks, and at the beginning of the pandemic, we were about at 77% that were teleworking, and we're about at 90% now. But we still have to go into court. We were struggling for a little bit because, and I'm going to go, lawyerish on here. When somebody is arrested for a crime, they have their initial appearance in jail, but then we have a probable cause hearing. And that's either done through a preliminary hearing or it is done through grand jury. And grand jury is a secretive proceeding. We send our more serious cases there because we don't want child molest victims having to go into court, homicide victims having to go into court for a preliminary hearing. Well, grand jury was shut down for quite a while. And they're now getting it back up, which is good because unfortunately, we have seen an uptick in homicides and domestic violence abuse and domestic violence homicides. And the other unfortunate collateral damage from the pandemic is that we have seen a decrease in child abuse cases. And the reason for that is our children are not in school where we have mandatory reporters. So we are prepared for when our children go back to school that we will see an uptick in child abuse cases, and we are prepared for that.
Yeah, I think that's been, as a parent, that's on our mind. The abuse that's going on that's unknown, that's so concerning. And it tugs on my heart. I know it must be top of mind for you. It must be a real sore spot. So I'm glad that that's going to be made a priority once we're able to open up a little bit more fully. Your office, actually, just pivoting a little bit to headlines, your office recently made national news for an indictment in the case of Alyssa Turner, a 17-year-old girl who went missing in 2001. Can you talk a little bit about that story? What's the story behind the headlines, and how were the arrest and the indictment, how were they possible?
Well, I'm limited in what I can say because of my ethical duties with pretrial publicity. We don't want to taint a jury pool or anything like that, but I can essentially give you some of the basics. Alyssa was 17 when she disappeared, and Michael Turney, while he was her stepfather, he actually did adopt her. And credit goes to her sister, Sarah. Her younger sister, Sarah, never gave up on her. She had a blog. She was intense on social media. And the Phoenix Police Department worked hard for 2 decades on this case to make sure that we had enough evidence that we're able to go to grand jury. I can tell you that Alyssa, on May 17th of 2001, was the last time that she was seen. She poked her head into her boyfriend's, her high school boyfriend's woodshop class and said her dad was picking her up early. And that was the last time she was seen. And from what I'm told and what I know about Alyssa, she loved animals, she loved drawing, she was a good soul, but she hasn't been seen or heard from since. And we felt that we finally had enough evidence to go forward to a grand jury. So now what will happen is her stepdad, Michael Turney, he had his initial appearance. A judge issued, I believe it was either $300,000 cash bond, or no, I'm sorry, $300 security appearance or $500,000 security appearance. I would need to check, and I apologize for not having those statistics right now. But due to the hard work of her sister and the Phoenix Police Department, we are ready to move forward with prosecution on this cold case. After 20 years, we'll get justice for Alyssa. Oh, Laura, I think you're muted. I can't hear you.
I'm muted, and I'll tell you why. Because Amazon pulled up, and I didn't want everyone to hear the doorbell. So there you go. Just one day of working from home and the Zoom life. Changing subject. I mean, kudos to your office and to Alyssa's sister for not giving up. I mean, 20 justice after 20 years. That's really notable. Thanks for providing the information that you could.
Thank you.
I wanted to also talk about the purpose of the Business Advisory Council that you recently formed. You know, what's the importance of this council to the business community, you know, and how can business owners get involved? How can they get engaged?
Well, and if it's okay, I'd like to actually talk about the Business Advisory Council and another advisory council.
Sure.
So we formed 2 councils because, again, you've heard me say that it's important that we have conversations and that we listen to each other. We did form a community advisory board comprised of nonprofits, faith-based leaders, those that want to see our criminal justice system succeed, and just to give feedback at what's going on in their space. Now, the Business Advisory Council, I was blessed enough to have conversations with, I see many of the folks on the line right now, and others to talk about how can the county attorney's office be a vehicle for criminal justice reform and looking at it from a business aspect. And so pre-pandemic, that was the impetus for it. Regardless, though, we had our inaugural meeting, and I am so lucky to have some amazing people engaged in that. Everything from small businesses to big business. We need to know what's going on with your employees. We need to know what's going on with your community that you're out there and working with, because we cannot effectuate change and be fully effective to protect public safety unless we have engagement on all levels. And so I'm incredibly grateful for those that have agreed to be part of it. If there are those that would like to be part of it, please have them contact me. I can also tell you, and Laura, I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but because we're talking about the business community right now, we have changed the way that we do community outreach. It used to be that we would go into schools and talk with children about bullying, vaping, and we'll still do that as soon as the schools open. But the way we're shifting is our whole theme right now for community outreach is keeping families safe. And so if there are any employers out there that are willing to give, 15, 20 minutes of time of your employees to come in, we have subject matter experts that can get to the parents to talk about real issues like cyber dating issues, prescription drug issues. We are still going to hand out our swag, and I think we have a bunch of lip balm left. So if you guys want some, let me know. But right now we have
no hand sanitizer, right?
No, get that. But we do have. We have partnered with I think it's Dose RX or No Dose or something like that. It's like packeted about this big of powder, because right now teens are breaking into mom and dad's medicine cabinet and getting the leftover Percocet, Vicodin from a surgery or whatever. And that leads to either an addiction with that particular opioid drug or further addiction. And we can't flush those down the toilet. We can't throw them in the trash. And I don't know about you, but I have very little time to return those drugs to Walgreens. So this packet that's about that big, we will be handing out at events for parents where they can pour this powder substance directly into the prescription drug bottle, fill it with water, and guess what? It dissolves the drug safely so you can throw it away and so your children aren't getting to it. But that's how we want to be proactive. We are not just reactive, we want to be proactive. So if there's a space where you want us to come talk about anything, we have so many amazing subject matter experts, everything from fraud, like I said, vaping, and we want to be here for the community.
That's wonderful. Is there I think it's so important to have that dialogue and to have a sounding board in the community, both from the nonprofit community, the business community, and stakeholders. So thank you for doing that. Are there ways to, getting more engaged for business owners that our members should know about? Are there ways for them, aside from, the business council, that they should be aware of?
Well, aside from the business council, and thank you again for mentioning that, again, we have subject matter experts in our office. We monitor fraud schemes that prey on our vulnerable. We monitor trends in the community where our children are being targeted. And so we are happy to come out and have those conversations with your employees to educate them and get the materials. And every month, I have to applaud our communications group. We've planned every month something, whether it's raising awareness for human trafficking or vehicular heat stroke. We are there for the community. Again, we are not just reactive, but I encourage anyone on the call to reach out to me or to our communications team, because again, we are not simply reactive. I'm a member of this community, as you've heard, Laura. I have 2 little boys, I have a husband, and this community matters to me. The other thing I'd like to add, though, if it's okay, Laura, if you have another question, I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't want to step on your toes.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead. I can ask it after.
I am very committed to transparency in our community. Therefore, we have now put our plea guidelines on our website so everyone can see them. And we now have a data dashboard, both first in the history of the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, where you can go on and see how many submittals, and submittals come from the police. We don't proactively go after and get people. The police submit charges. How we resolve those cases, demographics, even gang affiliation. I am committed to this. I am a big believer in lean process improvement. Laura, when she introduced me, talked about my time during state government. And I have seen how our governor wants to run things at this like business, and there is value to that. And so we've already engaged some lean process improvement things in our office to make sure our public records don't take 9 months to a year to get out now. We eliminated a backlog because, again, I'm committed to transparency. So I welcome suggestions and criticisms and all the rest of it, because I am working hard to make all of us proud and keep our community safe. Because if we have a safe community, we have a good economy.
Right. And speaking of efficiencies, I know you have a new data dashboard. What type of information will be made available to the public through the dashboard?
So the dashboard is actually up on our website now, and we're showing the cases that come into us and how they're resolved. So whether it is a trial, a plea agreement, dismissal, whatever it might be, but also some demographics as far as gender. But again, like I said, even gang affiliation. Again, this is the first of its kind in Maricopa County. And again, it's my commitment to transparency. Once we have more information, we will put up there. Right now, it only goes through the years 2019 because we obviously are still gathering 2020 information, but we do update weekly because cases take time. As I mentioned earlier, 18 to 24 months for a case to go through the system, but it is updated weekly.
Wonderful. And can you describe also your office's working relationship with the Valley's police departments? I mean, how would you characterize the level of cooperation with the police departments?
Well, I love this question because if my staff gets annoyed with me, it's because I always say things like collaboration and transparency. So I'm very blessed to have come in this position. I knew a lot of our police agencies prior to this, so I have pre-existing relationship with them and the courts and our public and private defense bars, so that we can, and our sheriff as well, Sheriff Pinzone. I've known him. He was the PIO on my vehicular homicide cases. And that's what we need right now. We need that collaboration. With our police departments, I did lift a ban by my predecessor where they were not allowed to, well, let me rephrase that. They were asked not to release body cam footage. That's a public records requirement. If they're going to release it, that's up to them. We are in communication though, because sometimes it could be high profile and it could impact not just victims, but the defendant's right to lack of pretrial publicity. And that is our ethical duty. And so we are in constant communication with them. We meet with them quarterly. We now have a first responders bureau that I'm proud to announce, because when our law enforcement, our firefighters, detention officers, probation officers are attacked, and they are being attacked at an alarming rate. And that group they have their own needs. And that's why we have dedicated prosecutors, a dedicated victim advocate to stand up for them. At the same time, when we have a first responder who is breaking the law, we will hold them accountable. And Laura, to your question, the police chiefs understand that, and we work collaboratively with them and do the right things for the right reason every single time.
That's wonderful. And I also wanted to give you an opportunity. I know you've been talking a lot about smart justice. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that subject, but it's been top of mind. So before we segue over to questions and answers, anything you'd like to mention about smart justice?
Smart justice is the wave of the future. We're clearly going to have a balloted initiative that's coming out. A lot of these things that we're already doing in the office, we have to realize that we have to be transparent. We have to realize that we have to do things a little bit differently, because when we over incarcerate, it contributes to recidivism. And so I am always welcome to the conversation. And again, I've had conversations with minority communities, with the ACLU, with the business community, with our legislators. And again, we might not always agree, but we have to have the conversation. And when we talk about smart justice, we really need to look at not only recidivism reduction, but how are we going to get people back and working and being successful? And that is what we are doing in my office, and that is what I'm committed to.
That's wonderful. It really is in a holistic approach to the person and restoring them so that they can be that can be a contributing community member. So that's wonderful. We're going to segue over. If any of our members has a question, feel free to raise your hand. If not, we will go to closing remarks. At the moment, I don't see any hands raised, but we'll just give it a moment.
And Laura, I'm happy to pick on people because I see a lot of friends on this call that I could pick on right now, but I won't do it. I won't do it. But I will tell you that I'm so grateful for everyone that's been on this call. And hi, Glenn.
Glenn, do you have any questions?
I was on mute. I just want to thank you, County Attorney, for your approach. And you know, it's very balanced. It's very thoughtful. And I appreciate you also continuing with the tradition of having a business advisory council. And I believe our chair is part of that council. So, and I also really like your idea of having a community council. Those are two really good groups that I know are going to provide very good advice. And thank you for doing this. Our inaugural virtual leadership series with us this morning.
Well, thank you, Glenn. I appreciate that. And I will tell you that, again, I'm just going to keep working hard. Transparency is key to me. And again, I'm a member of this community just like all of you. And we're in uncharted territory right now. And so we all just need to band together. And you've got a great group on here. I feel like we need to do a Zoom happy hour with this group or something. But I'm happy to answer any questions or be available otherwise. But I just appreciate the time. And again, I'm going to work hard, make everybody proud, and we're going to keep our community safe.
That's great. I'd just like to express our deepest thanks and echo what Glenn was mentioning, that we're very grateful for your leadership, for the thoughtful conversation, for the changes, the improvements you've been making in the area of transparency, ethical leadership, and also restoration when it comes to the diversion programs. Do you want to wrap up our webinar with any closing remarks?
Well, my closing remark, first of all, would be thank you, all of you. My goodness, it's only 11:32. Look at this, we got some extra time in. I'm a lawyer, I like to hear myself talk, but I haven't been talking that much. And I just appreciate the support. We've got a tough road ahead, and I'm honored to be your county attorney and to continue doing the right things, like I said, for the right reasons. In our office, we talk about ethical excellence every single day, and that is our mantra. And when we're all able to be in phase 2, whenever that is, I would invite this group to come have a meeting in our office because we are now in the old Madison Street Jail. And Supervisor Chukri and Supervisor Hickman and Gates, they all make fun of us because they joke about having all the prosecutors in the old Madison Street Jail. But it is a very innovative project about repurposing our buildings downtown and not just, shutting them down and rebuilding them. So I would love to host you guys there, show you around the building, introduce you to our canines. We have 3 therapy canine dogs for victim services. They mainly go with our child victims. And one of them recently, she was retired. Her name is Tori because she would fall asleep on the witness stand and start snoring. But we're getting a 4th, and her name's Coco, and she's a golden doodle. And the old basketball yard at the Madison Street Jail is now quite literally a Zen garden. So I would love to host all of you there when we are back in phase 2, and I just appreciate the time. And thank you all for what you are doing in your space, and let's stay safe and be well.
Thank you so much, Allister, for your time today. We're very grateful. We will definitely take you up on coming to see your pups. They sound so sweet. To our members, thanks for joining us. Especially to Louis, Roca, Rothgerber, Christie, our presenting sponsor. Special thanks also to Hensley Beverage Company, our webinar sponsor. And once again, thank you to our members, our guests, for spending time with us and joining us for this conversation this morning. We hope to see everyone at our upcoming webinar this Thursday with Scott Reed of the U.S. Chamber for a federal political update. So you're curious to see the latest stats on federal elections. Do not miss that webinar coming up this Thursday at 11 a.m. And everyone, I want to echo Allister's comments. Be safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Take care.